Ragbir, a native of Trinidad, came to the United States in 1991 on a visitor's visa. He decided to stay, went to college but didn't finish, and in 1994 he became a lawful permanent resident after marrying a woman who sponsored him for a green card. But then, Ravi got in trouble with the law.
A 2001 wire fraud conviction made his green card subject to review.
He was arrested about 20 years ago on a charge of wire fraud.
He moved to the US in the 90s and was later convicted for wire fraud.
He was convicted of wire fraud.
Ravi's routine and restrictions stem from a nonviolent wire fraud conviction.
Convicted for wire fraud. Tell us about it, Ravi.
I was convicted in 2000.
For a wire fraud
For wire
conviction.
fraud, working as a salesman for a mortgage lender.
And how long did you serve in jail?
I was sentenced for 2.5 years.
Way to gloss over a federal crime, huh? You'd think democracy now would take issue with a person who perpetrated mortgage fraud, but if they won't dig deeper, I will. In 1998, he started working with a broker named Robert Kosh. Ragbir helped Kosh by processing false mortgage loan applications, purposely not conducting required background checks, and using the names of people who had no knowledge that their names were being used on said applications. In his statement to police detectives, Ragbir confessed to the wrongdoing. He told me that he wanted me to do business with him through my company and set up real estate loans for people that he would send to me as referrals. He told me that he wanted to get the money from the loans and would send people to me to use false names and information and offered me 1 point from each loan. I told him that I would do it for him. According to Ragbir, he was involved in the filing of 21 different loans that he fraudulently submitted under his arrangement with Kosh, $1.5 million worth. Ragbir was supposed to receive 1% of the dollar amount of each loan. Ragbir was found guilty and convicted of 6 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Ragbir was sentenced to 30 months in prison and ordered to pay a $350,000 fine. In Ragbir's appeal in 2002, he claimed that the statement he gave to the West Orange police detectives should not have been admitted at trial. Why? Did the police coerce Ragbir's statement by beating it out of him? Nope. In fact, the court found that he had given the statement voluntarily, in a room with a secretary typing the questions and answers into a computer. When the questioning ceased, he was presented the typed statement, which he had read and signed of his own free will. To summarize, the court saw through this bullshit appeal and upheld the conviction. But to this day, Ragbir lies about his involvement and paints himself as a victim, including this New York Magazine piece, saying that he believed that the paperwork was legitimate despite his statement to the police. And in this podcast, he claims that his employers were out to get him.
Ravi started noticing that something was wrong with the company's loans.
I found out that they were doing compound interest on the loans. So the principals were never coming down, they were always going up, which was illegal at the time.
Ravi believes that it was his questions about compound interest that got him in trouble with his employer, and he thinks that's why he was targeted when law enforcement officials started investigating.
I became the target. That's what caused this problem.
Oh, his employer set him up. Yeah, that makes no sense. Which is why his appeal was rejected. It's hard to be sympathetic to a man who won't stop lying about the circumstances leading to his conviction and shows zero remorse for his crime. So in 2006, after doing 30 months in prison, Ragbir was put in front of an immigration judge and ordered deported. Turns out that if you have a green card and you're convicted of a felony, you lose your right to stay in the US. Ragbir and his lawyer have complained that he didn't get a proper hearing on his case and didn't take into consideration Ravi's character. His character. Ravi Ragbir is a man who didn't hesitate to help defraud banks, not to mention the real people whose names were put on mortgage applications without their consent and subsequently had to deal with credit fraud, and then refuses to own up to what actually happened. Yeah, great character. So Ragbir was sent to detention and was released in 2008 with a stay of removal while he and his legal team tried to overturn the verdict of his original case. In the meantime, Ragbir became an activist and eventually became the executive director of the New Sanctuary Coalition of New York City, an advocacy group that helps provide physical sanctuary to the undocumented facing deportation. If you want to get ICE's attention, help run an underground railroad for illegal immigrants.
So people have criminal convictions, it doesn't matter. A new sanctuary doesn't believe that no one should be deported because this law itself is a fiction. Racist.
So it's racist to deport someone who has a criminal conviction. Right.
We know that there is a movement to remove people of color. Yeah. We know that there is an ethnic cleansing being created by this administration.
They want to do what you call ethnic cleansing. Let's be real. Let's be real. This is about ethnic cleansing.
Was President Obama called a racist when millions of immigrants were deported under his watch? Of course not. When deportations happen under President Trump's watch, it's ethnic cleansing. Give me a break.
We're actually taking people that are criminals, very, very hardened criminals in some cases, and we're getting them out. And that's what I said I would do.
Oh my God, I can't believe he wants criminals deported. What a terrible monster. Jump to March 2017. Ragbir goes to the ICE check-in at the Federal Building in downtown New York City with hundreds of supporters and several politicians. They had feared the worst, but Ragbir wasn't detained or deported. Fast forward to January 11th, 2018. His stay of removal has expired, and Ragbir and his legal team know this. So again, along with hundreds of people, Ragbir goes to his check-in at the Federal Building. At the check-in, Ragbir is told that he has run out of legal options to stay in the US. Then Ravi does something that I'm sure wasn't staged at all.
So what happened is I passed out.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. So Ravi is put into an ambulance and transported to a hospital. So what did the hundreds of protesters do? They blocked the ambulance. Thankfully, Ragbir wasn't actually dying. A shot of Ragbir in the ambulance shows that there was nothing wrong with him. ICE probably did it to cover themselves. Ravi is sent to the hospital, medically cleared, and is flown to detention in Florida.
You know, they had an escort of 10 cars to take me to there. 10 cars.
10 cars for you.
Just me alone. When I was in the hospital, shackled to the bed, they had 20 people watching me. I was sitting down there and I'm saying, what is happening?
You were being targeted by ICE. They were targeting you, most probably because of your activism.
If you look at the way the events unfolded, that's the only conclusion you can make.
No, the conclusion is that Ragbir was surrounded by hundreds of supporters who were engaging in civil disobedience. Because of that, ICE needed to give him special treatment, and the NYPD needed to break up the protest, because that's their job. So he sat in Florida detention for 2 weeks, and instead of being sent back to Trinidad, he's flown to detention in New Jersey. The second Ragbir was detained, his legal team filed a lawsuit against ICE. And on January 29th, 2018, U.S. District Judge Catherine Forrest, who presided over the H3H3 copyright lawsuit, ordered him to be released.
U.S. District Judge Catherine Forrest said Ravi Ragbir's detention was unnecessarily cruel and ordered ICE to free him. In a decision she read aloud from the bench, the judge said Ravi Ragbir had, quote, the freedom to say goodbye.
The government didn't allow poor Ravi to say goodbye. Ragbir had been free from detention for 12 years. That's plenty of time to say goodbye.
This is a stunning rebuke of the Trump administration.
Not really, because the judge also said, the court agrees that the statutory scheme governing petitioner status is properly read to allow for his removal without further right of contest. He is subject to a final order of deportation. Judge Forrest is basically saying that Ragbir should be deported, but that ICE should do it nicer next time. After Ragbir was released from detention, he was told that he was subject to deportation on February 10th. So instead of saying goodbye, Ravi and his wife went down to attend the State of the Union address in Washington, D.C. as guests of U.S. Congresswoman Nadia Velázquez and Yvette Clarke. You know Yvette Clarke, the genius that thinks that slavery in the United States still existed in 1898.
If you could get in a time machine and go back to 1898, what would you say to those Brooklynites?
I would say to them, set me free.
From
slavery.
Slavery, really? I didn't realize there was slavery in Brooklyn in 1898.
No, I'm pretty sure there was.
Sounds like a horrible part of the United States that kept slavery going until 1898.
Oh, it gets better.
Who would be enslaving you in 1898 in New York?
The Dutch.
The Dutch. Those sneaky Dutch bastards.
Exactly.
Then Nadia Velasquez introduced a private bill to keep Ravi Ragbir in the country and give him permanent resident status. In a press release, Velasquez claims that Ragbir has dedicated himself to helping others. By helping others, she means helping to give undocumented immigrants sanctuary. Not sure how that's helping the New York City community at large, or is in the best interest of immigration laws. Besides, there is no way in hell that this is ever going to be approved by Congress or signed by Trump. It's a publicity stunt. Then there's New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. De Blasio wrote a letter asking ICE not to deport Ragbir, saying that it's in the safety and interest of New Yorkers. De Blasio doesn't explain how exactly, so it's a pretty empty statement. I'd like to remind everyone that in 2017, a federal inquiry found a pattern in which Mr. de Blasio or his associates solicited contributions from donors, seeking favors from the city, and then contacted city agencies on their behalf. The mayor and his associates weren't charged with a crime, so nothing to see here. Then, in some real insanity, 2 city council members that took part in the civil disobedience at Federal Plaza and were arrested are demanding that the police apologize.
At a city council hearing Wednesday, members demanded answers and suggested the police department was coordinating its efforts with federal immigration agents, a charge the police denied.
You were enforcing the local laws, and I get it, but that was helping someone be deported, period. You can acknowledge that or not acknowledge it. Now saying, hold on, I'm not finished. I have to wrap up.
The NYPD does not participate in immigration enforcement, and I think insinuating that is quite dangerous.
Here's footage of Williams being beaten to death at the protest. Oh, the humanity! Not only were Udonis Rodriguez and Jumaane Williams breaking the law, clearly they wanted to be arrested so that they could have an excuse to attack the NYPD. Not only that, but Councilman Williams also suggested that Ragbir not even show up to a 2017 ICE check-in.
I said that you shouldn't show up. That was my suggestion.
What a genius. By the way, Ragbir's team tried to reach out to President Obama in 2016 for a pardon and was turned down. So on February 9th, the day before Ragbir was supposed to be deported, the government, wait for it, gave him an other stay of removal. Yeah, I know. Why? Because Ragbir had filed a lawsuit against ICE and the Department of Homeland Security, claiming that with Trump in office, immigrant rights activists are being unlawfully targeted. Let me point out that these are immigrant rights activists who are breaking the law. However well-intentioned, Ravi Ragbir and the New Sanctuary Coalition of New York City unlawfully conceal, harbor, and shield unlawfully present aliens. I mean, they even have a map of all the churches where you can hide from La Migra. So now the federal government has a lawsuit to deal with. Best case scenario is that the lawsuit is thrown out and Ravi is finally deported. Worst case, the lawsuit will drag out for years while Ravi Ragbir continues to be an activist who aids and abets illegal aliens. This guy's never gonna fucking leave, is he? So what do you think? Leave a comment and let me know. And please click that like button and share and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.